Subscribe and like this video, more interesting revenge stories of elderly people coming soon.
My name is Jim. I'm 73. And I'm a shadow. Not a person. Not a father. Not a leader. A shadow in my own life. My home is an old two-story house on the outskirts, where once, in the stormy 90s, I wrote business plans at night under a streetlight because the lights were often turned off. Now that same house is neat, but with a rotting porch, with paint peeling from the old windows. Dust. Silence. A sofa that remembers the voices of my children, who now only call at Christmas. And not always. A kitchen table. On it is a cup of tea that I don't finish anyway. An old blanket on my lap. A silent TV, the sound is turned off, because the news lies, and silence is less painful. I have a notebook, with a black leather cover. There are pages where I no longer plan. There I just record. Dates. Events. Words. In the store, they don't see me. The cashier doesn't even wait for me to put change in her palm, she just takes my card and swipes it herself, as if I were furniture. In the hospital, I'm served with that condescension that's more painful than rudeness. Grandpa, undress. Come on, hurry up. We'll chew everything up for you, don't worry. Oh, can you even hear me? My children are successful, proud, and well-rounded. My son has 3 companies, my daughter has a career in medicine. And me? I'm just a tick in their annual plan, visit my father. My grandson once called me a meme from the past and laughed when I asked him how to turn on his tablet. And I remember mortgaging an apartment to pay for his first year of school. He doesn't know that. And he won't find out. But inside me, something is stirring. At first I thought it was pain. But pain has long since become a background. This is different. Sharp, like glass in a finger. Resentment. Not for old age, I accept it. Not for losses, I have survived them. But for the fact that I was written off, as if I had never existed. And here's what's strange, I am silent. But I no longer forgive. I once ruled the world. Maybe not this global one, but my own, local one. But it was my world. I remember standing on the roof of a new warehouse at 48, looking at the horizon and thinking, nothing will stop me now. My logistics business grew like weeds after the rain. I negotiated with banks where others were afraid to enter. I won lawsuits because I always knew the truth, not in the documents, but in the details that no one sees. I built strategies where every step was like a move in Go. Not chess, simple chess. And Go is a game for those who think dozens of steps ahead. When in '97 my partner stole our joint account and ran away, I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I silently rebuilt everything. I took the office, paid off the debts, kept the people. Not for him, for myself. Because I didn't fall. I knew that if I let myself fall apart, everything would fall apart. I remember signing another loan so that my son could study in London. He wanted to be someone great, and I did everything I could to make sure he didn't feel how hard it was for me at that moment. I was a pillar of the community. People turned to me when trouble struck. I found money, I settled conflicts. I was an authority figure not because I shouted, but because I could stop an argument with silence. When I entered the hall, the conversations died down. And now? Now in cafes they push me with their shoulders without apologizing. Now, when I enter the same hall where I once spoke to entrepreneurs, young people don't even look up, they just check their phones. I never aspired to fame. But I gave my life to others. And all I got in return was oblivion. And the worst thing is that they think I've resigned. But I remember. Every fight. Every step. Every betrayal I forgave. And every one I didn't have time for. Pain is not a scream. Real pain is silent. It spreads slowly, like the cold in your bones when you forget to close the window at night. My son doesn't answer the phone. I don't call often. Once a week. To at least hear a voice. But for the last 3 weeks, there's only been a voice message, "I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back." And he doesn't call back. I tried writing a dry "okay, take care of yourself." Like with a stranger. Recently, I asked my grandson to help with the TV, the sound disappeared, I don't know why. He came, but didn't even sit down. He fiddled with the remote control, mumbled something, and said, "You should go to a nursing home, everything is easier there." I smiled. And inside, something cracked. He didn't understand. And left. Silently. I went to the hospital. The old hernia began to make itself felt. I sat in the hallway, waiting. A young doctor came up, without even looking me in the eye, and said to the nurse, "Take the old man away. He still doesn't understand anything." I heard. And understood. And if it weren't for decades of self-control, I would have said it. But I was silent. I just remembered. Last name, date, time. I dropped a package in the store. No one stopped. No one. One woman walked by without even looking. A young guy stepped over apples that were falling apart. As if I wasn't a person. As if I were dust. But I'm not helpless. I'm not weak. I'm attentive. My notebook has become different. I no longer record prescriptions or medications. I record facts. People. Their reactions. Their masks that they wear in a world where they think no one is watching. I watch. I see. I don't collect anger, I collect silence. And this silence gets deeper every day. Like water behind a dam. And I know that sooner or later it will break through. It was cold. I was returning from the pharmacy, carrying a few small purchases in plastic bags. My hands ached, not from the weight, but from the resentment that no longer fit in my heart. At the intersection, I tripped. Maybe over a crack in the asphalt, maybe because of my own inattention. And I fell. The bags flew. The pills scattered across the asphalt. People stopped. But not to help. Laughter. The one that cuts. Dry, indifferent. One guy said out loud, "Another old man no one needs." That's when it clicked. I didn't feel any pain. Only the cold. And then, silence. Completely different from the one I was used to. It wasn't loneliness, it was a return. As if the dark river inside me had become a current again. I got up slowly. I gathered what was left. I was returning home in silence, but something in me was no longer the same. No fear. No pain. No regret. Just a thought, you have no idea who you forgot. In the living room, I sank into a chair. Next to it was an old safe. I opened it for the first time in many years. There was everything I had saved when I was someone I was no longer considered to be. An old Nokia phone. In it were numbers that had not changed for decades. A folder with notes, passwords, schemes, agreements. Dusty but not destroyed, the archives of influence. I turned the pages, name by name. I remembered those I had once saved, pulled out, covered up. Those who had now forgotten. Those who were now higher than me. Temporarily. Because I knew, power is not money. It is the ability to make events develop without your participation. It is the art of moving people like pieces. And I saw the chessboard again. And the game began. I do not call. I do not warn. I simply set the chains in motion. The world has changed. Before, bullets were needed to destroy a person. Now, information is enough. And I have always known how to listen, remember, wait. For the first time in a long time, I didn't just wake up, I woke up with a purpose. I opened my laptop. Old, heavy, but still working. I connected the drive that had backup copies of some inconvenient data. Contracts that were once rewritten. Translations that were covered up. Conversations that were held in a private chat. I didn't threaten. I just started pushing the dominoes. My son was the first. He boasted about his perfect image, honest business, and love of charity. But I remembered the 14% kickback he took from his real estate partner. I even remember the access code to his email. I haven't changed it in all these years. I sent an anonymous complaint with specific files. After that, to a journalist who was once my intern. He brought up the topic. A week later, my son was packing things from the office. Cameras. Report. Shame. He didn't know where it came from. He didn't even think about me. And he did the right thing. Then there was my grandson. A young start-upper, a favorite of social networks, the face of a youth campaign. In one of his videos, he cheekily mocked the elderly. Someone used the clippings of my fall to edit memes. I found out who from his SMM agency team did it. And I filed a complaint through an acquaintance at an advertising agency, with whom I once made a very profitable deal so that he would forget. As a result, my grandson loses his sponsor. The campaign is being filmed. Contracts are being torn. I didn't call anyone. I didn't write. I just set off chains. I reminded everyone who had once accidentally forgotten me who I was. And who I could be. The house became restless. My son has started visiting more often, as if he suspects something, but doesn't dare to say anything. My daughter calls in the evening, for the first time in years. Dad, are you okay? Absolutely, I answer. Everything is exactly as it should be. The notebook is getting thicker. New names. New nodes in the network. And all this is just the beginning. Because I won't take revenge the way they fear. I will take revenge in a way they don't even know. And you know what's the most powerful thing? I'm nowhere. I'm nobody. I'm the air between their falls. They came in the evening, as if to awake, but without flowers. The door opened, and those who had once forgotten and those who had once despised stood at the door. The son, with eyes searching for arguments and justifications at the same time. The daughter, with an attempt to suppress real questions under the mask of care. The grandchildren, with heightened curiosity, which they confused with concern. The apartment, which had always been my fortress, had turned into a place where other people's wrongs were now resolved. They thought that I would start talking. That I would explode. That I would finally break this silence and utter a list of insults made up of small, daily humiliations. But revenge is not always a scream. Sometimes it is a silence that lasts. Sometimes the deepest blow is inflicted by just a look. They talked, argued, tried to push me to an answer. I listened. Every word was like a step along the slender path of my game. They babbled on the topic of apologies, youthful mistakes, old age patience. And little by little they realized not everything they had lost was accidental. Some doors had not opened when it was convenient for them. All attempts to justify themselves were becoming thin and lost. The son was silent the longest, not because he had no defense, but because he had begun to count his losses. The daughter remembered the calls she had not made, the grandchildren, the likes and reposts that had turned into failures. The people they had considered allies turned out to be less reliable, and their careers more fragile than they had seemed. I did not glorify myself. I did not demand tears. I did not need them to burn with shame, it was enough for them to feel the emptiness that they themselves had once created. When one of my grandchildren looked into my eyes, he saw not old age, not weakness, but something else, a recent presence that would not go away. His gaze reflected the horror not of power but of the realization someone had seen their actions, and that someone did not forgive. I made my last entry in my diary that night. My hands trembled not with pain but with peace. I wrote briefly, without pathos. The letters were like the last figures on the board. I did not want collapse. I wanted the truth. I did not seek revenge for pleasure, I sought balance. Old age does not demand pity. It demands respect. And if respect is taken away, it will have to be reminded of in a different way. Let them remember that there are eyes that see and hands that can change the course of events, even if no one notices it directly. I am not the end. I am a lesson. When they left, the room was left with the echo of their footsteps and a heavy air filled with the unspeakable. No scenes of rescue. No dramatic revelations in their voices. Only the quiet realization that the lines they had drawn in life, both noble and treacherous, now had consequences. I had not become a saint. And I had not become a monster. I remained who I had always been, the architect of events, only now working in the shadows. And I knew, the power of old age is not screaming, not revenge for pleasure, but understanding the moment when silence is stronger than any word. I closed my diary. I put the kettle on. The emptiness in the house became different, not an empty place for oblivion, but a shadow that reminds me of the command, look closely. Because old age is not the end. It is another form of power that the majority is not ready for, because it sees everything, and it is better not to do anything unfriendly to it.